Do not go to other women like her. Wallahi, she'll destroy your marriage.
Icon, she's a legend, and she is the mom.
You're tapped. With all due respect, sister, you are tapped. Those divorce babes are a proof of your self-worth. Look how disgusting this is. You are out there encouraging divorce, something that is hated. Yes? Disliked. Of course it's halal. Out there. Why? And who's it coming from? A single mother. You are telling us about, oh, okay, it's what? It's divorce babes are a proof of your self-worth. What an irresponsible person you are. A woman like her, who is a single mother, wants misery that's company. Yes? They want other women to be single. And hear what she says? A beauty tip. Have that baby and leave. What an amazing advice, a responsible advice from a single mother advising other Muslim women, have that baby and leave. Amazing, beautiful advice. Well, she just proves my point furthermore. Misery loves company. She seems still traumatized, and all she's talking about is divorce.
So let me say this firsthand, that the aim of patriarchal readings of the religion are to weaponize faith, control women's choices, and silence their pain. So nowhere in the Quran does it says Allah hates divorce. But as always, misogynistic Muslim men are very obsessed with the hadith that justifies their humiliation of Muslim women. So the phrase that Allah hates divorce comes from a hadith, and even that hadith authenticity and context are debated among scholars. Some classify it as weak. If it was to be taken at face value, it was meant to discourage frivolous divorce. You understand? It was never to condemn, silence, or humiliate. Because if you read this ayah in the Quran, that Allah says if they separate, Allah will enrich each of them from his abundance. This statement doesn't sound like a God who hates divorce. It sounds like a God who understands human limits and values your dignity over your endurance of oppression. That is what it sounds like. So when Muslim men like this uses Allah hates divorce to shame and silence women, what they are really doing is protecting their male comfort, their own ego, not define justice and truth, because you will never see them apply the same standard for men. So the defined justice of Allah is that Allah legislated divorce, regulated it, and made it accessible to both men and women. So if a woman says her divorce paper is her self-worth, so instead of asking why a woman had to rebuild her self-worth through divorce, a Muslim man mocks, belittles, and shames her, slurring her with single motherhood. You can see the ick from the video, right? Then he claimed she is glorifying divorce. Who gave you the right to define what a woman should or should not celebrate in her own life? And yes, she's glorifying liberation after dehumanization. But as usual, Muslim men see themselves as middlemen to God. So that's the apathetic audacity Muslim men like this carry to insert themselves into a woman's story and see themselves as being religious. That is what they claim to be religious. The same person in this video who says Allah hates divorce never mentioned that Allah also hates oppression, arrogance, and injustice. We call that names. The way he icks when he says women should not take advice from someone like her and slurring her with single motherhood, a single mother, exposed his biases and disdain towards divorced women, divorced Muslim women. These biases and disdain, Allah never has it towards such group of women. Allah doesn't have biases and disdain towards divorced women. That is the misogyny of Muslim men. That is not defined truth. These same Muslim men will put up flowery statements about the status of women in Islam when debating non-Muslims, just to win an argument and suit their overzealousness. Here he said she's clearly traumatized. That is why she's talking about divorce, as if that justifies his mockery. But as usual, don't expect any basic decency from a misogynist, rather than humiliation and condescension. That's all they can afford to give. Is this how you address someone you claim is traumatized? And you did all this mockery and insult, humiliation, and trying to silence her and shame her, while claiming to defend a religion that is rooted in mercy, justice, and dignity. You all misogynistic Muslim men have destroyed your marriages by yourselves. You all are riding on the backs of wounded women that don't have the power to choose themselves. That is why you still find yourself in marriages with women. So you all clearly despise women, yet you still cling to women for the comfort they bring into your lives. And misery loves company, they say, right? How is divorce a mystery? It is not a mystery. The Quran never described divorce as misery, but your misogyny does. Your misogynistic selves continue to burn in your rage because, God forbid a woman is divorced and thriving, because you can't stand the sight of a woman who is divorced and thriving. You all desperately want to believe that a woman is miserable with divorce, because the happiness of a Muslim woman or a woman exposes the lie that you all live by. So you are desperate to believe that a woman is miserable. So divorce is not misery. Misery is staying in what destroys one's soul just to protect fragile egos like yours. That is the misery. Again, the Quran says, if they separate, Allah will enrich each from his abundance. That verse doesn't sound like condemnation and humiliation. That is what your misogyny tries to insert. So that verse sounds like mercy from Allah. If a woman reclaims herself through divorce and you want to desperately marginalize and slow her because her story threatens your theology and condescension, it is because what you all have been practicing is not faith. It is control of women, subjugation of women. And again, if a woman reclaims herself through divorce and you rush to slow her, marginalize her, and question her faith, her story doesn't threaten Islam. It threatens your control, your ego. So you all have molded the legislation of Allah into chains of oppression, shame, and sloth. You all don't love God. You weaponize God.